Hello, good day class. This is GSP 1201/2201 use of English lecture slides, and as usual this is for group E2 microbiology and zoology. I am Aliyu Yakub Yusuf. This is the second lecture on module 4 writing skills. In other words, this one is a continuation of the subsequent lecture on module 4 lecture 1. So this is module 4 lecture 2. Happy listening. And we are beginning with report writing. Report is another category of continuous writing. And if you can remember, in the last lecture we discussed essay writing and letter writing, and we are beginning here with report writing. What is a report? According to UBA 1998, a report is a document providing an account of events witnessed, work carried out, or investigation conducted, together with conclusion and open recommendation arrived at as a result of the investigation. Yes, when we talk about a report, we're talking about a document, a written document that talks about a particular event that happened, or a particular work carried out, or a particular investigation conducted. And in a report, there is conclusion and recommendation given to the people responsible for conducting the report. If, for example, a particular event happened, like let's see an exam like WAEC was conducted and there was mass failure by the students, so the government may decide to conduct a report, or to write a report, or to make investigation on why students failed that exam. Why was there massive failure in the exam? So a report like that is what we call a report. A document like that is what we call a report. So basically, report discusses about an event or a work carried out or investigation that was conducted because of certain reasons, and usually there is conclusion given at the end as well as recommendation. In other words, report is a detailed account of events that someone has thoroughly observed, heard, done, or investigated, and presented as an official document. Yes, the report is presented as an official document because at the end of the day, after the reporter conducts the investigation and he or she writes the report, he or she is expected to submit the report as an official document. So after making all the investigations, after interviewing many people, after observing many phenomena, the writer sits down and composes the report. He or she will submit the report as an official document to those who assign him to conduct the report. A report is usually written to guide organizations in policy formulation and decision making. It is usually written on the basis of some stated objectives and for a particular category of audience. Yes, a report is not just written for anyone. There are some audience that are targeted at. Likewise, there are some objectives that are given to the person writing the report, and it is based on those objectives that the report is conducted. Likewise, a report is usually used in policy formulation and decision making. Yes, whatever the report finds out, whatever findings, whatever conclusion or recommendation the report gives, they are usually used in policy formulation to formulate policies or to make policy decisions that may look for a kind of a solution to those problems investigated. And a person who is tasked with writing a report is usually giving instructions and guidelines on how to go about writing the report. This may include a clearly structured format consisting of sections, headings, and subheadings so that the location of information can be easily followed. Yes, whoever is tasked to write a report is usually giving instruction and sometimes even a format on which to follow to write the report. So the format may have many sections, subsections, headings, and subheadings so that the writer can easily follow those sections, headings, and subheadings to write the report. Now let us look at the qualities of a good report in the next slide. Now, qualities of a good report. These are some 5 qualities that we identify to be important as far as writing a report is concerned. A good report must be clear, accurate, and unambiguous. Yes, a good report must be clear and accurate as well as unambiguous. In other words, all the points mentioned, all the information stated, all the uh, points raised must be clearly stated, must be unambiguous, must be as clear as possible. A good report must be well structured and highly organized. It should have sections and subsections. Like I have said earlier on, a good report must be well organized and properly structured. There must be sections and subsections because information cannot be jammed up in one place. A good report must be informative. Yes, it has to provide adequate information for readers. A good report must have clearly defined objectives and scope. Yes, a writer of the report shouldn't be beating about the bush. There should be a scope, a particular area of coverage that he or she is targeting. Likewise, there must be clearly defined objectives of the report, because without any objectives, then there won't be a clear organization and structure in the reporting. And finally, a good report must consider the needs of potential readers. Yes, any written document is meant for others to read, so it's the same with the report. Therefore, the potential readers must be considered when writing a report. If the readers are young learners, then the language or the diction and the wording used must consider their experience, their understanding, and their age. Likewise, if the report is meant for highly knowledgeable people, then that should be taken into consideration too. Now, language of reporting. Language of reporting should be strictly formal. In other words, since a report is a formal document, the language should be devoid of any informality. The language should be clearly written and devoid of any of the following usage discussed on this slide and the next one. Number 1, contraction. In report writing, contraction must be avoided. There shouldn't be any use of contraction. This includes isn't for is not, can't for cannot, don't for do not, I am for I am, I've for I have, you are for you are, and so on. All these contractions must be avoided. So when you come to write a report, use words in full. Number 2, cliches. Cliches are overused phrases which lose their meanings and effect. In other words, cliches are expressions which have become stale because of long time of usage. These are expressions that are used over and over again. They are overused to an extent that their meaning and efficacy have been lost for a long time. In other words, they don't make any effect in the mind of readers. These include cliches such as, in a nutshell, it is against this background that, at the end of the day, the fact of the matter, at this point in time, in the final analysis, etc. However, there could be some few instances where cliches can be unavoidable, but generally speaking, cliches should be avoided as much as possible by report writers. Number 3, idioms. We discussed idioms in module 1. So idioms should be avoided as much as possible in report writing. Idioms such as put all your eggs in one basket, a pen in the butt, bury the hatchet, call a spade, flog a dead horse, icing on the cake, and so on. These are some examples of idioms. So idioms must be avoided when writing a report. Number 4, archaism. These are words or phrases considered old-fashioned or obsolete. Yes, these are phrases or words that are regarded to be old-fashioned, obsolete, archaic, and they are no longer used. In other words, they lose their currency in the English language. Examples include thee, thy, thou, nay, ain't, doth, hath, dropped, dost, etc. These phrases or words are no longer found in contemporary English. In other words, these used to exist in the Old English, and even nowadays some of them can be found in religious scriptures. But in contemporary English, they have lost their currency as such. They are no longer used. Therefore, writers of report must avoid them as much as possible. Then the next one, number 5, is slang. Slang is an expression which is considered very informal and therefore not used in formal writing. Yes, slang is an informal expression, therefore it shouldn't be used in a formal writing. For example, these are some slangs that must be avoided when it comes to formal writing. Affluential, frenemy, unreal, dis, blimey, cheers, chopped, gobsmacked, gutted, huggle, wonky, and many more other slang. All slang must be avoided when it comes to formal report and other formal writing. And number 6, uncommon abbreviations and acronyms. There are abbreviations and acronyms which are regarded as standard because they are commonly used in varieties of discourses. These include GOVT for government, SCH for school, UNICEF, BUK, ODEPT for department. These are common abbreviations which are used almost all over the world and in a variety of discourses. However, there are some abbreviations that are uncommon, that are only used by a few number of people, mostly in substandard or informal discourses. This must be avoided in formal writing. That is why here we said apart from these kinds of approved abbreviations and acronyms, all others, especially those used in text messaging, should never be used in formal writing. For example, B and 4. B, letter B, and number 4 for the 4. Or letter C for C. All this must be avoided in formal writing. Or in the Hausa language, our upcoming generation like to use some ridiculous abbreviations. YKK for Yakake or SLM for Salam. All this must be avoided when it comes to formal report because the report is an official and formal document. Therefore, everything must be strictly formal. Types of reports. Reports can be classified variously. In other words, there are many ways in which reports can be classified. They can be classified in various ways based on their nature, formality, purpose, and functions. That is to say, depending on the function or purpose or formality or nature of the reports, it can be classified based on this. Therefore, we have what we call routine reports. Routine reports are those that are written daily after work hours. So there are people who are tasked to write reports daily after finishing work for the day. Then there is an eyewitness report. This is a report written by somebody who has witnessed a particular event or incident and he or she is tasked to write reports about it. Then there could be an investigative report that is written after carrying out an investigation like police investigation or investigation by private detectives. Then there is a progress report. A progress report is the one written usually in schools to talk about or to report about progress of students in their course of study. Then there is research project reports. This is a project written by students at the end of their studies. So all these are different types of reports. However, broadly speaking, all these categories of reports can be grouped into two main types: formal and informal reports. Let's discuss the informal report briefly before we discuss the formal report extensively. An informal report is a report that does not follow the rules and guidelines directed by an organization. It can be written to send information to only one person or for a small number of individuals. Such reports are shared among co-workers within an organization in form of a letter. Yes, an informal report is not like a formal report, because in informal reports there is no strict guideline or strict rules or strict format or procedure that must be followed by the writer. In other words, a writer of an informal report can follow a format that he or she finds suitable, and this report is used to send the information to only one person or to a few number of individuals. That is why it is written mostly among co-workers within an organization, and it is written usually in form of a letter. Another type of report is the formal report, which is also known as official report because it is meant for official purposes. In other words, this is a kind of report that is written to some organizations which can be private or public. It is written to provide information, analyze issues, and make recommendations on how to solve a problem or make a decision. Yes, this report is written officially to provide information, to seek for information, to discover some information, or analyze some issues, and after analyzing the issues, the recommendations can be made on how to solve a particular problem affecting the society, or how to make a particular decision that will affect the society. If, for example, there is a mass failure, let's say in an exam like WAEC, the government may decide to conduct a report or to conduct an analysis to find out why there was that failure. Why was there a failure? What is the reason? Then somebody would be assigned to make investigation and come up with the report, a formal document on how to solve that particular problem. The person may interview a lot of stakeholders in education like parents, students, officials, teachers themselves, even other stakeholders in the ministries of education and the other educational institutions. So after all that, he or she may come up with some recommendation on how to solve that particular problem. That is a typical example of an official or formal report. Example of formal reports include research project reports, policy report, evaluation reports, and many others. And this report has a particular structure in which it is written. In other words, what we are going to discuss next is the structure of a formal report. The structure of a formal report depends upon one's departmental or organizational requirement. That is to say, as there are many organizations or departments, so are there many formats or procedures or structures in which a formal report can be written. In other words, a format used by a particular organization may be different from a format used by another organization. However, despite this variation, there is a general format that is usually used by almost all organizations, and this is what we are going to see next. The first item that comes in the formal report is the title page, and on the title page there should be the title of the report at the top, then the name of the reporter, that is the name of the person who writes the report, as well as the date in which the report is compiled or submitted. In other words, this is a page that comes first, and it contains the title of the report, the name of the reporter, as well as the date or month in which the report is submitted officially. Secondly, we have what we call the table of contents. This should contain all the chapters or headings together with their page numbers. This allows the reader to easily locate all parts of the report. Yes, just like the table of contents in textbooks, this is also the same, if you like. It gives the title of all the chapters or headings inside the report, as well as the corresponding pages in which those chapters or headings can be found. This allows the reader to easily locate all parts of the report without having to read from the beginning to the end. Then the next item, or item number 3, is the executive summary or abstract. This gives a very brief explanation on the contents of the report. It gives the summary of the summary of the purpose of the report, the method of investigation, the major findings, conclusion, and recommendations, if any. Yes, the executive summary gives a brief information or a brief explanation about the whole content of the report. In other words, it gives a summary of the whole report. All the information, all the sections, all the points raised in the report are, are summarized or given in brief in the executive summary. It summarizes the purpose of the report, the method of investigation, the major findings, the conclusion, and the recommendation, so that if a reader doesn't have enough time to go through the whole report, he or she can just read the executive summary and have an idea about the whole report. The next one is introduction or terms of reference. In this section, the reporter should clearly discuss all the necessary background information, aim and objectives of the report, as well as the definition of all the abbreviations and acronyms used in the report. Yes, this gives an introduction. Here, the reader, the writer of the report, gives a general background information about the report. Why is the report conducted? What necessitates conducting or writing the report? What failure, what information is being sought after? Why is the report being conducted? As well as the aim and objectives of the report, as well as the definition of all the terms and abbreviations or acronyms used in the report. This all comes in the introduction. The next item is the methods of investigation. Here the writer should clearly spell out the method he or she used in collecting the data used for the report. That is to say, if there are some procedures that the writer follows in getting or gathering the data for the report, these procedures must be spelled out in this section. This may include a list of all the equipment used, explanation of data collection procedures such as questionnaire, interview, observation, discussion, focus group discussion, limitations of the method, as well as the problems encountered during collection of the data. That is to say, here the writer must clearly state everything that took place when he or she was collecting the data used for the report. He should explain the techniques he or she used in collecting the data. Is it questionnaire that he or she used? Is it interview, observation, discussion, and so on? What are the limitations of those methods used in collecting the data? And what are the problems he or she encountered while collecting the data? All this must be explained in this section. Then the next section is number 6, findings and conclusion. Here, after explaining the method used in collecting the data, then findings and conclusion come next. This section deals with the logical presentation of the findings of the report. Yes, here the writer gives detailed presentation of the findings of the report. What are the findings arrived at based on the data collected and the analysis made? What are the findings that are arrived at? The writer of the report must explain all this. To further support the result of the investigation, the writer may decide to include diagrams, tables, and graphs. Yes, to further support or to further buttress the points raised in the presentation or in the findings, the writer may decide to use graphs, diagrams, tables, and other charts. This is followed by the conclusion, which may either take the form of highlighting the most important points of the report or show the overall significance of the research. Yes, after finding them, finally comes the conclusion. Here the writer may decide to conclude the report by highlighting the most important points of the report in a form of a recap, or he or she concludes the report by showing the overall significance of the research, the overall importance or significance of the report. This recommendation. This usually takes the form of a call to action. The recommendation given must be in line with the findings of the report. Yes, recommendation is sometimes optional depending on the needs of the report. So recommendation may take the form of a call to action. Here, after discussing all the problems, after finding the analysis and the solution, the writer of the report may decide to give a recommendation on what he or she thinks will be the solution to those problems. He can recommend to the government and the other agencies on what to do to find solutions to those problems he or she investigates or investigated. Then number 8, appendices or annexes. In this section, the reporter should include all the supporting documents and information used which have not been included in the report. This may include questionnaires, transcripts, graphs, etc. Yes, appendices usually come in form of questionnaire. If the researcher used a questionnaire during collection of the data, the questionnaire should be appended in this place after the recommendation. If there are other graphs or transcripts or other charts that are used in the report which are not included inside the main report, then they should be appended here in the annexes. Then finally, bibliography or references. In this section, a reporter should list in alphabetical order and by author all published sources referred to in the report. Yes, if there are some books or some journal articles or some book chapters used in the report, then the writer should list them in alphabetical order and by author as bibliography or references, so that the readers may decide to consult those materials to see for themselves the information used by the reporter. The next category of writing is curriculum vitae or CV, if you like. When applying for a job, it is paramount for job seekers to give a good first impression to potential employers. This can only be achieved through writing a good curriculum vitae or CV. Yes, when you are applying for a job, sometimes or even most of the times you are asked to submit a CV, and it is your CV that will give an impression about you in the mind of your potential employees. In other words, job seekers who want to give a good first impression must have a very good written CV. CV is also called resume. Resume or CV is a personal marketing document that job seekers use to sell themselves to potential employers. Yes, a CV or resume is a personal marketing document. It is a document that you as a job seeker can apply to sell yourself to potential employers. So it's an important step in securing a job. As such, when it is written well, the candidate stands a good chance of securing his or her dream job. Conversely, when CV is poorly written, the candidate may face rejection repeatedly from employers. That is why it is important for job seekers to have a very good written CV. Because when a CV is well written, you have or you stand a good chance of getting employed to do your dream job. Likewise, conversely speaking, when your CV is poorly written, you stand a chance of being rejected repeatedly from many employers. A CV is expected to explain to your prospective employers a lot about you, including your professional history, skills, abilities, and achievements, as well as why you are the best person for the job on offer. Yes, a CV is a document that should explain to your potential employees about you. It is a document that should tell a lot about you, a document that should explain a lot of information about you, including your professional history. What and what have you read? What is your area of expertise? Which course have you studied? What are the skills you possess? What are the abilities and achievements regarding you, as well as why you think you are the best person that can do the job? So here in the subsequent slides, we are going to give 10 rules of writing a CV or 10 rules of writing a successful CV as given by the University of Southampton. Now, rules of writing a successful CV as given by the University of Southampton. Number one, simplicity. A good CV should be simple and shouldn't be overcomplicated with too many categories or too many information that are required. Yes, any good CV must be as simple as possible. It shouldn't be too loaded with information that is not needed. So a writer of a CV should make sure that his or her CV is as simple as possible. Only the information that is needed is given. And number two, highlights. Because a CV is a marketing tool, one should make sure it highlights all one's personal and professional achievements to date. Yes, a CV must highlight all your achievements, whether they are personal or professional to date. Then, truthful. One should not fabricate or falsify any information in the CV, as it will be known to one's employer at some point. Yes, a CV must contain only a truthful information. A writer of the CV shouldn't fabricate or falsify any information, because even if you have done so, it will be known by your employer at a point in time. Then number four, unique. The style and tone one uses in writing one's CV should be personal to one. In other words, one should be direct, positive, and personal. Yes, a style of your CV, a style you apply in writing your CV should be unique to you, should be personal to you. In other words, you should be direct, positive, and personal in your choice of style of writing the CV. Number five, tailored. The contents of the CV should be tailored in line with the current job application requirements as well as the job description. That is, one needs to be flexible when writing a CV. One of the mistakes students do when writing a CV is to assume that a single CV can be used to apply for different jobs. That is a grave mistake. Yes, any CV should be tailored in line with the current job application requirements. In other words, when you are applying for a job in a particular organization, your CV should be tailored towards the requirements of that job application. But when you are applying for a different job, then the CV should be modified to suit the next application. In other words, your CV must be as flexible as possible. That is why you can have as many CV as you have many application or job application or job requirements. Number six, word processed. A good CV must be word processed. It should be typed and spelling and grammar checked using word processor. One also needs to avoid using slang, colloquialism, and cliches. Yes, a good CV must be word processed. In other words, it must be typed and the spelling and grammar must be checked using a word processor to avoid unnecessary mistakes. Also, one needs to avoid using slang, colloquialism, and cliches because a CV is a formal document. Therefore, any language usage that is informal must be avoided. Number seven, succinct. When writing a CV, one needs to be short and concise. Employers are never impressed with several pages of useless information. This, however, does not mean that many information should be lumped up together. Yes, when writing a CV, one must be short and precise, short and concise. One must be as brief as possible because employers don't like a CV that has many useless information, a CV that has many pages of useless information. But this doesn't mean you should omit some information that you think is important. Likewise, many information shouldn't be lumped up together. Number eight, reversed chronology. You know, in all the subheadings of a CV, the most recent events should come first, followed by the next, and so on. Yes, when you come to write a CV, especially as it relates to your certificates or the qualification you obtained, it is important you arrange them in a reversed chronology. That is to say, the recent qualifications should come first, followed by the next, by the next, by the next, and so on. In other words, the most recent qualification that you obtained should come first, followed by the subsequent ones in the order of recency. That is what it means by reversed chronology. Number 9, review. One should give one CV to a respected colleague to critically proofread and review it. Yes, it's important when you finish writing your CV, you give it to someone, a colleague or a senior person that you respect, to critically proofread it and review it. In case there could be some mistakes or some adjustment, he or she would advise you to make those adjustments. And finally, number 10, quality. A CV should be typed in an A4 sized paper using an appropriate font size. Information should be well spaced so that the CV looks neat, qualitative, professional, and easy to read. You can use bullet points to identify and separate information, but make sure to never use a colored text in a CV. Yes, a CV should be typed in an A4 sized paper using an appropriate font size. A 12 font size is usually the official or the most preferred font. Information should be well spaced. In other words, the information shouldn't be jammed or lumped up together in one place. Otherwise, the CV won't look neat or qualitative or easy to read. Likewise, writers can use bullet points to identify or separate information. Likewise, writers are advised to never use a colored text in a CV. Now what we have on this slide is the format of writing a CV. Although a CV can be written in a variety of ways based on the skill and experience of the writer as well as the job requirements, there are particular sections that employers expect to see in a CV. These are explained below. Yes, although CV has different format in which it can be written, and also it can be written based on the experience of the writer as well as the requirement of the potential employees. There are some sections that are mandatory as far as a CV is concerned. That is to say, there are sections that employees expect to see in any CV. These sections are explained below. Number 1, personal details. This is positioned at the top of the page. It includes name, professional title, and contact details. Under no circumstance should you make the title of your CV as curriculum vitae or CV. Instead, your name should be taken as the title and should be followed by your address, phone numbers, and email addresses or email address. So, what we are saying here is that unlike what used to be the case, now CVs are not titled curriculum vitae or CV at the top of the page. Rather, the title should be the name of the writer of the CV. Your name should be the title, written boldly at the top of the page. Then below it should be your address, then followed by the phone number and the email address. That is to say, after your full name, then the next thing is your address, your official, your home or office address, then your phone number or phone numbers as the case may be, and your email address. Then number 2, personal title, a personal profile. Personal profile, also called personal statement, career profile, or professional profile. This section is one of the most important parts of a CV. This is a short paragraph that gives your prospective employer an overview about who you are, your career goals, and what you can offer to the company. Yes, this is a brief overview about yourself as a potential employer. That is to say, as a potential employee. That is to say, this section, personal profile, which is also known as personal statement, career profile, or professional profile, is meant for you to give a brief information about yourself, about who you are, about your career goals and as well as your potentials or aspirations and what you can offer to the company. Your profile should be tailored to every job you applied for by highlighting the specific qualities that make you the most suitable candidate for the job. Yes, like I have said earlier on that your CV should be flexible. It is the same as this section of the CV. Your profile should be tailored, should be in line, should be commensurate to the particular job you are applying for at the moment. That is to say, whatever you explain in the personal profile, whatever information you give in this section should be in line with the job you are applying for by highlighting some qualities that make you the most suitable candidate for the job. Then the next section is employment history. This should start with the most recent or the most relevant employment information. Yes, if you have worked in some other places before you apply for the current job, then you should explain your employment history by giving the most recent employment followed by the next. In other words, the work that you are currently doing or you have just left should come first, followed by the subsequent ones in reverse chronological order. Even if you are not involved in any paid employment, it is likely that you are doing something at the time from which you have learned new skills. Yes, even if you are not currently doing any paid employment, there could be some things that you have been doing at the time in which you are applying for the job and from which you might have learned some new skills. You can mention that as part of your employment history, even though it is not a current, it is not a paid job. For each previous position, state your job title, the organization you worked for, dates employed, projects involved in, positions or responsibilities held, achievements, and experience gained. Yes, for any employment, if you have worked, let's say, for three particular places or three particular organizations before you apply for the current job, then for each of the three places, state your job title. State the name of the organization you worked for, dates you were employed, projects you were involved in, positions or responsibilities you held, as well as your achievements or experience you have gained from those three jobs. If you have many years worth of experience, you can reduce the details of old or irrelevant ones. If, for example, you have garnered a lot of experience for many years, you can reduce that. You can reduce the detail of old or irrelevant roles. You can choose the experience that you think is more relevant to the current job and leave out those that are not so relevant. And number 4 is education and qualifications. Education and qualifications. This should also be written in a reversed chronological order. One should include the name of the institutions one attended and the dates he or she attended them. Yes, this should also be in reverse chronology. In other words, you are expected to write names of all the institutions you have attended as well as the dates in which you attended them in a reverse order, starting from the most recent school down to the list in terms of recency. If, for example, you are a graduate from a university, then your qualification that should be mentioned first should be your degree, then followed by a diploma or NC as the case may be, or IJMB, then followed by your secondary school qualification, and finally your primary school qualification, together with the dates in which you have attended all the schools. This is followed by the qualifications and grades one achieved. Yes, apart from mentioning the schools as well as the dates in which they were attended, then this is followed by the qualifications and grades one achieved in those schools. In the case of examinations like WAEC or NECO, one need not include details of all the subjects taken. They should be grouped together as 9 WAEC credits or 7 NECO credits and so on. Yes, in the case of exam where you wrote a number of subjects, you don't have to mention all the subjects in your CV. What you will just have to do in the case of exams like WAEC or NECO, you shall just write 9 WAEC credits or 7 NECO credits as the case may be. The next is the additional sections. There is a range of additional sections that may strengthen your CV and highlight your skills. The following are some sections that can be included. Yes, there are, apart from the ones we have mentioned, which are the most important, there are some other sections that may strengthen and make your CV much more current. These are some sections that can be added. Number one, key skills. This section may sometimes come before employment history. You can include your language and computing skills, noting the level of fluency as well as the evidence of using them. Furthermore, you can include any other skills that you think are appropriate to the job you are applying for. Yes, one of the skills someone can mention is language or computing skills. If you can speak a number of languages, that is a plus for you. You can mention them in the key skills that you are a multilingual and you can speak 5, 6, 7 languages. That is an additional advantage that somebody might not have. Likewise, if you are good at computer or browsing the internet, you can mention that you are a guru when it comes to computing skills. And it is important you note the level of fluency in language as well as the evidence of using the language, as well as your level of proficiency, your level of skill in terms of computing, as well as the evidence of using your computing skills. And this section may come even before the employment history in some CVs. And in case you have other skills that you think are relevant to the job you are applying, you can mention them. That is also appropriate. Another additional section that may be included is hobbies and interests. If you feel that your CV is still lacking, you can improve it by including your hobbies and interests. Yes, if there are some hobbies or interests that you think are not detrimental to the job, then you can include them, especially when you still feel that your CV is still lacking. If, for example, you are good at playing football or you are an avid reader of novels, you can include those as your hobbies or interests. You can mention that you are good at playing football, or you like to watch football a lot, or you are good at reading novels. Any other extracurricular activities that you think may make your CV a bit more full, if you like, you can mention it here. However, one must be careful not to include hobbies that may hinder one's chances of getting the job. One should draw only on those that are relevant to the job. Yes, in this case, somebody must be careful, because if you include any hobby that may be detrimental to the chances of getting the job, then that would be a disadvantage to you. So any hobby that you include must be the one that is relevant to the job you are applying. Finally, referees. In this section, try to identify reliable referees and include their names, job titles, contact details, and their link to you. Yes, referees is an essential part of the CV, and it usually comes at the end of the CV. In this section, you should identify 2 or 3 reliable referees depending on the needs of your potential employers. Include their names, their job titles, their contact details, and their email addresses, as well as their link to you. Alternatively, many people decide to omit this section or state that references are available or request. Yes, sometimes you can omit this section because some organization may decide if they want a reference to write a recommendation or attestation letter for you. So you may omit this section, and they said that references are available or request. So in case they need it, they will request it. It is important though to seek prior permission from your referees. Yes, before you include any person as your referee, it's important you tell that other person beforehand. It's important you tell the referees and seek their permission before you include their names as referees, because they may be required to write letters of recommendation or attestation for you. And in case you don't inform them beforehand, they may decline to do so. So it's important your referees are aware that you are using them as referees beforehand. What not to include in a CV? This is really important. This are some things that should never be included in a CV. Number one, a headshot or a picture. In some countries, it is common to include your picture on your CV. However, in the Nigerian context, this practice is not allowed. So depending on the country, a headshot can be included or otherwise. In some countries, pictures are appended at the front page of the CV, but in Nigerian context, this is not allowed. So never include your picture in the CV. Number two, age and date of birth. The only dates that should be on your CV are those about your employment and qualification information. Yes, your age or your date of birth is not important as far as CV is concerned, because it doesn't determine your capability to do the job or otherwise. Your age should not determine your ability to do the job you are applying for. This detail may even count against you in many instances. Yes, in a situation whereby you are a little bit aged, your employers may like to employ someone who is more agile, who is younger, who they think can do better than the old you. So your age and date of birth are not important because they won't hinder your ability to do the job. As such, don't include them in your CV. Finally, marital status. Marital status is another information that should not be included in a CV, as it does not influence one's ability to do a job. Many a time, marital status of an applicant may be used to discriminate against him or her. Yes, you shouldn't include your marital status in your CV, because whether you are single, whether you are married, or whether you are divorced or widowed, that shouldn't interfere with your ability to do the job. But some employers may think otherwise. So it's important not to include your marital status because it may be used to discriminate against you. Now the next category of writing is an email or electronic mail. Writing an email. We are going to learn how to write an email. Email is one of the newest and the most sophisticated forms of correspondence between individuals and organizations. Yes, nowadays with the current information and technological advancement all over the world, email has become the most important form of correspondence between individuals and organizations. In fact, it is the newest and the most sophisticated means of making correspondences. An email is a message which may contain text, files, images, or other attachments sent through a network to an individual or group of individuals. Yes, an email is a message that may contain many files, many texts, many images, or other attachments that is sent through a network to another person or to other persons. Email has a number of advantages over other forms of correspondence in that it is a faster and more instant way of sending and receiving information. Through an email, an individual can instantly transmit a large volume of information to a wide range of recipients. Yes, email has an advantage over other means of correspondence because it is faster and more instant. As soon as you send a message to another person, as soon as you send a message to another person, he or she receives it instantly, as long as he has a connection of internet. And additionally, through an email you can send large volume of information. You can send many texts, books, you can send a lot of files, you can send images, you can send videos, you can send many other huge attachments to another person or to many persons at a time. However, for someone to send or receive an email, he or she must have an email address and connect to a server. Yes, for you to have for you to send an email or to receive one, you must have an email address as well as internet connection. You have to be connected to a server, and you must also have your own email address. An email address must contain a username and a password which allows the user to access the email. Yes, when you want to open an email address, that address must contain your username as well as your password, because whenever you want to log into your email, you will be asked to write the name of the email address as well as the password. So nearly all organizations nowadays have an email address. and website which they use to correspond with their employees as well as the general public. It's nearly all organizations all over the world have an email address because nowadays it is the newest form of correspondence. So all organizations have their email address as well as website, and through their email addresses and websites, they correspond with other individuals, their employees, and other people among the general public. The common the common email used by most individuals and organizations include Gmail, Yahoo Mail, Hotmail, and so on and so forth. Now, stages of writing an email. There are some stages to follow when you want to write an email. In other words, there is a procedure that one has to follow when he or she wants to send an email to another person. An email can be viewed or received through a computer or a cell phone that has an internet connection. Yes, you can receive or send an email through a computer or through a cell phone, a handset that has an internet connection. When sending an email, the individual must first access his or her email address. Yes, when you want to send an email to another person or to other persons, you have to first access your own email address by opening a browser, writing your email address as well as the password. After accessing your email page, then you should click on compose button. There is when you access your email page, then to the side, to the left hand side, you will see a button which is tagged compose, and a funnel will appear which contains three options. When you click that compose button, a funnel will appear which contains three options. The first option is designated to, and it is where the email address of the recipient of the message should be written. Yes, on the first column, which is designated to, this is where you write the email address of the person you want to send the email to, or persons if there are many people that you want to send the email to. The second is labeled or tagged subject, and that is optional. And this is where a brief information about the contents of the message can be given. If the second option is labeled subject, and the subject is optional. You can leave it blank if you like, but it's important because it is where you can give a brief description or explanation about the contents of the message. Then the last option is the compose email button. There is another button which is labeled composed email. This is where the actual message to be sent should be written. And one advantage of email is that if a sender wants to attach pictures, audio files, or video files, he or she can do so by clicking the attach file button. Yes, if there are other things that you want to attach or you want to send to the other person, then you can click the attach file button. There's a file down the page labeled attach file. This is where you shall click, and it will take you to your device where you can access the files that you want to attach in the email. Those files can be pictures, can be books, can be texts, can be audio or video files, and so on and so forth. And as soon as you click the attach file button, it will lead you to different locations on your computer or cell phone where you can select those pictures, audios, and so on and send them together with the email. After selecting the appropriate file, one should finally click on send. Then after you select all the files you want to attach in the email, then you click on send button, and the message is instantly transmitted to the recipient's inbox. Therefore, the recipient can easily open and view the contents of the message. Yes, as soon as you click send, then the message will be transferred or transmitted to the inbox of your recipients. Therefore, the recipients can easily open their email and view the contents of the message in their inbox folder. Minutes of a meeting is another category of writing that is discussed briefly on this slide. Writing minutes is among the primary responsibilities of a secretary of a department or an organization. Yes, writing a minutes of meeting is one of the duties of a secretary or in a department or in an organization. Minutes of a meeting is meant to take notes of what happens at any membership meeting. Yes, whenever a meeting is being conducted in any organization, minutes of meeting is taken to account or to take note of all what happens at the membership meeting. It is meant to record all the motions raised, all the matters that have arisen, all the conclusions reached, and so on and so forth regarding that very meeting. The notes are called minutes, a record of official business that occurs during a meeting. Yes, the notes that is taken by the secretary is what we call minutes. It is a record of official business that occurs during that very meeting. The secretary has to first study the agenda of the meeting, which serves as a skeletal outline. Yes, that is the first duty of the secretary, is to study, to take a look into the agenda of the meeting, and through that agenda, he or she organizes how to go on about writing the minute, because the agenda should be the skeletal outline of how the meeting should be structured. Now, characteristics of minutes. A minute should indicate the date, time, and place of the meeting, the name of the chair of the meeting, and the list of those present or attendance. Yes, in the first place, on the first page, a minute should indicate the date, the time, the place of the meeting, the name of the chair of the meeting, the person that is chairing the meeting, and the list of those present in form of attendance. Secondly, a minute should record an explanation of any matter, including any motions made and actions taken. Yes, minutes must contain an explanation of any matter that has arisen, any point that is raised, any motions, and any action that is taken or resolution that is arrived at must be captured in the meeting. Finally, minutes should indicate the next meeting, date, time and place, or the time of adjournment, the writer's signatures, the writer's signature, name and date. Yes, at the end, in the end, minutes must indicate time of the next meeting, date and time of the next meeting, as well as the place of the next meeting. Then it must indicate the signature and the name of the writer of the minutes, as well as the date at the bottom. What is most important is that sometimes minutes can come in form of headings and subheadings. For example, if in the agenda there are 5 items to be discussed, then the minutes may have 5 different headings. So whatever is discussed in all the stages regarding any of the agenda, then that should be explained fully, including any motions made or actions taken or resolution arrived at. That is how to go about writing minutes of meeting. Another way of correspondence or passing information among individuals is through memorandum, also known as memo in brief. It's a way in which information is shared within and outside an organization. Memo exists in a form of correspondence meant to convey information to members of an organization or to other organizations or bodies. Yes, a memo is usually used to pass information, to convey messages, or to pass information within members of an organization or to members of other organizations that is outside the organization sending the memo. In some disciplines like law, a memo is regarded as a record of the terms of a transaction or a contract, such as a policy memo, memorandum of understanding, or memorandum of association, and so on. So, like it is said here, in a discipline like law, a memo is regarded as a record of transaction, record of agreement, or record of a contract that exists or that was signed between two different parties, such as policy memo, memorandum of understanding, or memorandum of association, and so on. A memo is divided into two types. Remember, I said earlier on that a memo can be sent to members of an organization or to members that are outside the organization. That is why we have an internal and an external memo as the two types of memo. The first is the internal memo. This is a memo written and circulated to people within the same organization. Yes, as the name implies, this memo is written and circulated within an organization. It is written and is circulated to people within an organization. So the information is to be passed across members of the same organization. In other words, an internal memo is a brief written communication aimed at passing information from an organization to its various employees or between and among officials in the organization. Yes, this memo is written and the aim is to pass information or to convey messages from some officials to other employees within an organization or among the officials or employees themselves. The topic of an internal memo may range from general notification, request for action, to invitation, to meetings, and so on. So the topic depends on the information that is passed across. So it can be a memo about notification, or a request for action, or a memo for invitation, or for meetings, and so on. There is a format of an internal memo. When you come to write a memo, there is a general format that is usually approved by most organizations. Even though the format may vary from one organization to another, what we have here is what is common or specific to most memos. That is, in writing a memorandum, some organizations may take specific formats peculiar to them, but generally speaking, an internal memo has the following format. The first item in the internal memo is the heading. This comes at the top of the page and shows the name of the organization as well as the caption internal memorandum. Yes, the heading usually comes at the top of the page, and the heading contains the name of the organization as well as the caption internal memo to indicate that this memo is internal, is meant to pass information within members of the organization. Then below heading, then you have another column which is labeled from. This comes at the left hand side of the page and shows the title of the officer writing the memo. Yes, in the from side, from usually comes at the left hand side of the page, and it is used to indicate the name and the title, I mean not the name, the title of the officer writing or sending the memo. The next item on the internal memo is the label which is called to. This comes below from and indicates the designation of the recipients of the memorandum. Yes, the to indicates the designation or designation of the recipients of the memo. Who are going to be recipients of the memo is indicated in the to place. Then the next is date. This is written below the column 2, the date in which the memo is written. Then subject. The next item is subject. The subject or title of the message is written below the sections above. This can be written in uppercase alone or in upper and lower cases. Yet the subject of the memo usually comes after all the information given above, the heading, the from, the to, the date. Then comes the subject. The subject, which is the heading or title of the message, is written below all this information given above, and it can be written either in uppercase throughout or in upper and lower case, and it can be in bold face and usually at the center of the page. Then after the subject or title of the message, then the next item is the body of the memo. This is the actual information the memorandum intends to convey. Yes, this is the actual information that is passed across, the message that is conveyed to the members of the organization. Then after writing all the information meant to pass across, then finally the name of the writer comes at the end. This comes at the end of the memorandum. Yes. In this slide, we have a sample of an internal memo. Look at the name of the organization, Muzammil Travel Agency, number 233 Bampai Road, Kano. Look at the caption internal memo. below the heading. Then downwards you can see from general manager to all staff, and date December 23rd, 2015. And afterwards we have notice of meeting as the title or subject of the message. Then here is the body. This is to inform you that the annual end of the year meeting is scheduled to take place as follows. Date Monday 28 December 2015. Beno Musa Abbati Room. Time 10 a.m. The following agenda will be discussed. Opening prayer, brief remarks by the general manager, successes recorded in this outgoing year, challenges and problems encountered, way forward, any other business. Then downwards there is the name of the writer or sender of the memo. And the second type of memo is the external memo. This memo is usually written to send messages to the general public or other external organizations and bodies in order to convey information on certain specific issues. Yes, as the name implies, an external memo is sent externally. It is used to send information to the general public or other organizations outside the organization sending the message in order to pass information on certain issues. In other words, an external memo is written for the people outside a company or an organization and is written in a more formal approach. Yes, because it is sent outside the company or to the people outside the organization, the language used is largely a formal one. So the approach is a formal one. Like in most continuous writing tasks, external memo has an introduction, main body, and conclusion. Yes, it's an official or formal document. As such, it is written in a formal or official way with an introduction, the main body, and the conclusion. It is important to note that the format of an external memo differs from one company to another and depends on the person or organization to which the memo will be sent. It's just like an internal memo. The format of writing an external memo differs or varies from one organization or company to another organization or company, and it also depends on the recipient, the person or the organization to which the memo is sent. Therefore, the format may vary. However, most of external memo are written in form of formal letters. In most cases, external memos are written in form of formal letters and sent to people outside organizations. This takes us to the end of this module, that is module 4. See you next in module 5. Thank you very much for listening. I remain Aliyu Yakub Yusuf.